Hey guys, welcome to Through the Bible Verse by Verse, a simple and plain study of God's Word from Genesis to Revelations, chapter by chapter, book by book, and verse by verse. Verse by verse. We are currently in the book of Genesis, and we finished chapter 1, which was the first 6 days of creation. So we're going to move on to chapter 2. In chapter 2, well, we're not going to move on to chapter 2 in this study. But when we get to chapter 2 is going to sort of zero in on a couple of details, mainly the creation of man, the setting up of man. I'll get to that in that study. Before we move on to chapter 2, however, I want to bring out something that I wanted to talk about. Now, look at this, and it said the LGBTQ, and but yet God only used 2 letters. Okay, God only used 2 letters, M and F. Now, this is kind of important for us as Christians, because we are in a time where there is going to be some big issues over pronouns. In other words, there are individuals who are choosing to identify, how they identify. And then they're going to say, we as a society must honor that. Now, on the one hand, I don't care about that. If a person wanted to refer to themselves as a dog, as a lion, okay, fine. You're a lion. You're a dog. So when you have the transgender or the LGBTQ, and they say, well, look, we want to identify with these kind of letters, fine. If I come to you and say, I want you to call me stupid, no big deal, right? But what the issue is going to be, where laws and rules are going to try to now govern the enforcement of abiding by these new standards. The problem, of course, with the trans issues and the gay issues and stuff, they're kind of writing it as they go on. In other words, they're making it up as they go. So, for example, you have transgender, right? Then there's transsexual. Then there's transvestite. And they all have their kind of different designation. In a sense, its essence is that how a person decide they want to identify. So and you hear this terminology, the body they were assigned at birth. Excuse me, they were assigned at birth, right? But then they say, well, if I was assigned a female body, I'm choosing to be a male. If I am assigned a male body and I choose to be a female. And then, of course, there's what's called non-binary. There is sexual fluidity. And these are kind of fancy terms where it's just however I feel at the time. Male today, female today, right? I'm gonna have sex with this person today. I'm in sex with a male today, sex with a female, whatever. And the problem, of course, is that there is right now a vigorous push to enforce these standards. But I want to kind of go back, and I want to look at what God created. Because this is never going to change for us, no matter what society establish, no matter what society, what laws and rules they make. For the Christian, we will not ever concede to sinful, ungodly standards. And for us then, some of us will have to decide, of course, how you navigate. Some of us are going to have to decide a few years ago, there was a Christian who was in I believe it was a Miss America pageant. It might have been a Miss Universe or something like that. Okay, but it was on television. And even back then, this is several years ago, the issue of gay marriage was a hot topic. And one of the judges, who was gay, of course, himself, asked her about gay marriage. And you almost got to wonder if that was a setup, because they knew she was a Christian. And none of the other contestants were asked that question. She kind of she sort of stumbled through the question, but it was clear. And when I say stumble, she stumbled because and this is my take. She stumbled because she just was trying to kind of figure out how to say it to be clear in her convictions, but yet at the same time be tactful about saying it. That's the way I took it. People thought she was just kind of being a bumbling idiot, but in the end she basically said she believes that marriage is between a man and a woman. And that cost her, of course, the pageant. My point to saying this will be, as Christians, we're going to have to decide, should I even be in the pageant? See, because that's the reality. If you're going to be in the public sector. And as I said, in our journey here through the Bible, verse by verse, we haven't got to chapter 3 yet. And because chapter 3 is why we have this paradigm that we have. And that's why I'm no doubt going to spend a lot of time in chapter 3, because we're going to unpack what sin is. And then as a Christian, how do we now navigate through that? As a Christian, how do we say we're going? How do we navigate through that as a Christian? See, how do we function as a Christian? And there are going to be some persecution of Christians on these issues. There's going to be opportunity denied because, like that Christian who was in a beauty pageant, right? Those are the issues. If you want a career in music, there was another evangelist who was very, very well known, and one of the songs made it into a hit movie that I think won an Oscar, which means that she was going to win the Oscar for the music. So now all of a sudden, all of Hollywood wants them on their show. And she was scheduled to be on the Ellen DeGeneres show. You know, the lesbian Ellen DeGeneres. But in her preaching, it was uncovered, there was some tapes where she was preaching hard against homosexuality. And then, of course, she was canceled. She was criticized in the media, and everybody who kind of worked with her had to kind of distance themselves from her. Here's my point. We need to ask ourselves, in the first place, evangelist or gospel singer, why were you in that paradigm in the first place? See, these are the kind of things we're going to have to say, all right, you know what? You know, be it as it may, the gospel truth, we're never going to compromise with that. And so, let's read again, and because verse 27. So God created man in His own image. He created him in the image of God. He created them, male and female. Now I want to kind of just stop there and linger for a moment. Notice He said He created male and female. So, what is interesting with the gay community, the LGBTQ right, community, is, let's go back to, what did God create? Male and female. We fast forward to Jesus, and when Jesus was asked about marriage, very interesting thing. He was asked about marriage. He was actually asked about divorce. And he said, in the beginning, God made them male and female. See, so right there from the beginning, if you say you believe in God, God made them male and female. When we talk about marriage, God made them male and female. God did not make male male. God did not make male. Now we're going to even explore this when we get to chapter 2, because chapter 2 really lays the foundation for that. So I'm going to jump ahead, I know, but let me jump ahead, but because Moses goes into detail. In other words, Moses talks about the 6 days of creation. And then he's going to come back in chapter 2 and then zero in on this point of the creation of man and man's place in this newly created world. And one of the things you see is God made man, male, and female. So the trans, the gay, the lesbian, they all come after the effects of sin. And they want to say, well, and by the way, let me also say this. Not only do they come after the effects of sin, but they are navigating through a paradigm of a Christian-dominated thought. In other words, what they are bucking against is the Christian-dominated thought. Back in the Roman days, you didn't have this conflict between the homosexual and the LGBT community because there was no resistance to it. In other words, nobody cared. Everybody was doing their thing. They were perverted anyway. They were pagan. They were perverted. So it wasn't an issue. Okay, dude was into dudes. She was into girls. They were into both. But there was no issue of that. What you have today is because 2,000 years later of the world being saturated with Christian thought, that's what people are bucking against. But the problem, of course, is that they're trying to make their lifestyle normative. So we go back to the Bible then. God created male and female. The biology of that supports that. What's kind of amazing about the biblical narrative is, as I said, even though it is not a scientific book, there is no scientific claim that disproves it. So the male and the female creation, which is a wonderful creation, it was in the mindset of God. It was in the heart of God. So then we can examine what he created to determine what his will is. Today, because of science, you have the ability through science and to transform your body, to manipulate the hormones, right? So a woman could transform her body into a male body. But understand that, providing she has the drugs and providing she stay on the drugs. So let's say she commits a crime and then she goes to jail. What happens? Her body reverts back. Isn't that funny? Other than the surgical stuff, okay, the surgical stuff, but just the hormones of the hair and all that kind of stuff. And that's what they fight against. So not only do they fight against, the transgenders who go to jail are now trying to fight that when incarcerated, they must be supplied with the drugs. Why? To keep their form, which tells you it's not natural, because you have to artificially, right, keep that. But you look, if you just go back from a logical mind and you study, what did God create? Male and female. And then you look at just the biology setup of this, and you say, well, because by the way, there are people who try to make an argument for same-sex marriage biblically. I kid you not. And they try to go through all kinds of stuff. But just go back to this verse right here. Just kind of go back to again, verse 27. God, He created them male and female. And then you can say, well, what is it that He created, right? What did He create? What did He create? See, when you look at this, what did He create? I am a male. I am a male from birth. And everything about me is male. My wife is female. Everything about her is female. We don't have to work at it either. And if you didn't know anything, let's say if you were an alien traveling through, right? You're swinging through the solar system. You go, oh, look at that little planet right there. And you swing through and you start observing. Okay, I'm getting into science fiction with some of these people that say that they were abducted by aliens. Okay, let's go with it. Let's indulge that for a moment. Let's say, okay, so you got these aliens that go, I want to know about these beings here on this planet. So they abduct a male, they abduct a female. And they look at him, they started looking at him, and they go, okay. This male member is supposed to go into that female genitalia. Yeah, I'm trying to keep it clean here, but you understand what I'm getting at. I'll be bold. They're going to go, what's the penis for? What's the vagina for? If you were following forensically and say, let's study them, right? Let's do all kinds of experiments. You're going to see that the vagina was made for the penis, not the anus. I'm going to get to the sexuality much later. When I'm talking about just simple, pure biology in the context of saying, what did God create and why? He created the male and the female. And thank God. And no other part works better than that. No other part works better. Right? Anal sex, oral sex, whatever. Understand, no other function works better than what God created. That the genitals that were designed to respond to each other. Now you can also go back to the physical part of what God created. That God created the male body and then the female body. And look at the difference there. Just from a biological, if you don't do anything, you're going to say there is a difference between the male and the female body. There's a difference. And there is a clear, distinct difference. You're not confused. Right? Sometimes, in other words, if I look at a male or female chimpanzees, I don't know, other than looking at the genitals, I can't tell the difference. I know those who study can. I know that sometimes you can look at a lioness and a lion and say, okay, there's the difference, but not much. But from a male and female human, there are clear, distinctive difference, and that's what God created. That's what God made. And as to the changes, remember those changes happen in the confines of the sinful nature. And again, we'll flush that out later, because when people are fighting against that, you're fighting the wrong battle, because it's the sinful nature that's a problem. And unfortunately, that's what it is. So, all right, guys, look, that is, we'll pick it up in the next study when we get into chapter 2. We'll probably touch more on that. I wanted to just kind of emphasize again what God created in the beginning, male and female. And I want to use this in the part of God did create Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Okay, I know that's funny. All right, anyway, guys, see you in the next study. See you next.